the danger of living our lives a certain way and how that can become a lifestyle, how that can become your new normal. It is, say, like depression. Say, for example, someone's going through a depressing period. If we don't snap out of that, if or take actions or get the right medication or the support that we need, that becomes not just a condition, but it becomes a lifestyle.
Welcome to Mirror Talk Soulful Conversations. If this is your first time here, we're so glad you found us. And to our returning listeners, welcome back. We've missed you. Take a moment to hit that subscribe button so you never miss out on the inspiration, wisdom, and heartwarming stories we share every week. Let's grow together, one soulful conversation at a time.
Today, we welcome Evette Rose, a counselor, author of 19 books, trauma recovery expert, and the founder of Metaphysical Anatomy technique and metapsychology coaching. With over 6,500 one-on-one client sessions and seminars in over 43 countries, she has helped thousands to heal from trauma, uncover suppressed emotions, and transform their lives. Our personal journey from a near-death experience to a profound spiritual awakening fuels our passion for empowering others. Welcome to the show, Evette. How are you doing?
Thank you, Toby, for that warm introduction, and hello to everyone else. I am thrilled to be here with you, and I'm glad that we were able to connect our time zones so that we can have a fun talk together.
Yes, I'm so glad that you made out the time and the effort to do this.
Yes.
You're connecting all the way from Bali virtually and me sitting out here early in the morning. That's awesome. And I'm looking forward to learning so much from you. And before we start recording, you agreed to, take part in our
Yeah,
wildcard
let's
games.
do it. I'm ready. Give me that first
Yeah,
question.
so I'm shuffling. So I just shuffled the cards right now and I've just picked one at random.
Okay.
And the question is, when's the last time you gave somebody a compliment? When was the last time you gave somebody a compliment? Yeah.
I love that question. I actually make an effort of doing it every single day. For me, it's now part of my lifestyle. It's not just an event. So, for example, I work very hard and I have a babysitter who helps me with my children. And sometimes my children can be, tantrums and they're all over the place. And every day I say to them, thank you for loving my children. Thank you for being so great at what you do. And I really appreciate you. And I make sure that I say that every single day because I know the stress and the strain that she sometimes has to go through. I love the gardeners as well. Every time when I see the gardeners in our community, I say to them, thank you for making the garden look so beautiful. So for me, I actually make it a point of saying thank you or just complimenting someone on something that most people would just completely overlook because we are so desensitized as humanity, and it's almost like the human in humanity has been taken out. And for me, I feel like my contribution is part of just seeing that little something to lift someone up, because it really can make a difference in someone's life. Just because you don't see the impact doesn't mean that there is no impact. And so I love to just thank people and show that gratitude. So for me, gratitude and compliment, it's the same thing. They go together, because when you compliment someone, it also means that there's something about them that you appreciate, something that you admire. And I think it's beautiful that people can share that with someone else, because we're taught how to compete. We're not taught how to appreciate someone else's success. We're not taught how to appreciate someone else's strengths, right? So for me, it's a part of staying humble and just being another human being trying to make it in life. So for me, it's every day. So I saw them yesterday. So it was yesterday. Last night, we had a wonderful meal. And I said to the chef also, I always go into the kitchen and I'm that weird client that goes into the kitchen and I give them a wave and I say in the local language, Jan Sajan, which means thank you for a very nice meal. And then we rub our stomachs and everyone laughs and they love it. And then we leave. So for me, it's wherever I go, wherever I am, it's an integral part of my lifestyle. It's part of Evette. So you guaranteed it would have been today as well. So the pizza was really good today that we had for lunch. And I said to the chef, to the waiter, I said compliments to the chef. It was lovely. So yeah. So just a few hours ago.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah. Actually, now that I think
I
of
love
it.
that so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I think I'll try to also cultivate that kind of
Do
habits
that,
to
and it
thank
makes you
everyone.
also feel so good. It's like you're just beaming and brimming with that person, and it just creates this beautiful
Mm,
synergy with a complete stranger that's completely platonic, and
mm.
then you both go your separate ways again. Like, it's just beautiful. I love it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, making the world a happier place by sharing compliments.
Yeah.
Yes. Are you ready for the
Let's
second question?
go.
It says, "What is the most embarrassing memory you have?"
Oh my goodness. I was teaching a class. If they I mean there's a lot, but if there's one
Mm,
that comes to mind, a few years ago I was teaching a class and I could not pronounce a specific word.
mm.
And
Oh, yeah.
I kept stumbling. And when I get nervous, I
Mm,
sometimes stutter. And I don't
mm,
stutter generally speaking, but I stutter when I make a mistake and it's involving public speaking. And so a student was really nice, and she said the word, and then literally a second later I could still not say the word again, and everyone is laughing, but of course not at me, but just about the funniness and of the whole thing. And so every time when I had to refer to this word, I would ask her to say the word, because you know you would start to panic when when you know you have to say the word now, and then your mind kind of escalates. And so yeah, she was really
yeah.
kind to help me out with that. But I do remember that as much as I laughed with everyone, I was really hiding, feeling very embarrassed, because I'm a speaker. It's my job. So yeah.
Yeah.
And
Oh
I
yeah. I mean, I,
failed.
I can totally I can totally relate to that also. I start to stutter when I make mistakes, and
Right?
I'm always feeling very uncomfortable to pronounce the word again because like, and I make the
And it
same
gets
mistake.
worse.
But,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Well, what do? We just pronounce it anyways and just move on.
Spit it out.
Yeah. So the last white card question. Are you ready? So it says, "What are you afraid of passing down to your kids?"
That's a really good question. It's really interesting that you should ask me that today, because just this morning, once a week, I check in with myself. I love to do healing work
Mm,
on myself. So what I teach to other people, I do it on me as well. I don't just yap. I put it to practice. And just this morning, when my youngest daughter Amala was having her 2-hour power nap, I remember I was lying next to her, and I checked in with myself, and there was this impatience with life. And I started to dive into that impatience with life, and holding the intention that as I unravel this in me, that this unravels in them as well, because I learned and
mm,
noticed how much beautiful moments it has taken away from me. That impatience of needing
mm,
to work, go, go, go. But what about just look how beautiful the sun is? Look at the community that is around me right now. Just look at the people who love me and who I love. And and this is something that has been a process for me, I have to say. It's been a
mm,
process, but
mm,
funnily enough, just this morning, I feel like I got into a deeper layer of that, and holding the intention is funny, because, and the reason why it's funny is I was holding the intention that this shifts in both my kids
mm.
as well. Because the greatest gift that you can give yourself is to be present. Because when
True.
you're present, that's where the magic happens. That's where you manifest. That's where you create action that your future self will thank you for. The past doesn't need you, your
Mm.
future does. And the only way that you can
Yes.
adjust that is now. Not
Mm,
what am I going to do
mm,
tomorrow? You don't know what's going to happen
mm.
tomorrow. There's a high chance whatever you
Yeah.
planned, it's just not going to happen, or
Mm,
something happens and there's a delay and whatnot. The present moment,
mm,
and the present moment for some people can also be the most painful
mm.
place to be. And that's because we haven't
Oh
learned
yeah.
how to befriend our emotions. Instead, we see it as an intruder. We see it as this this gnarly side, this darkness to life, but it's actually not. Emotions are very beautiful. It's just the illusion of how they cause us to feel in the present moment as a result of our past. But the power, Toby, the power that we give it is dictating decisions, big decisions that we make on a daily basis that's consistently and constantly affecting our future self. Our future self is constantly paying the price for us not being able to live in the present moment. And impatience is another symptom of feeling unsettled, feeling uncomfortable being in the present moment. So I'm not going to go too, because I can do an entire, week retreat speech on that. So, but just
Yeah.
to make it, a nice short and sweet bullet point, for me, it's breathe through that impatience, that drive, that need to succeed, this, that, and just pull back, breathe, focus on your breath. How does that feel? Feel the clothing on your body. Wow. Feel the surface beneath you. Just listen to the sounds that's around you. So I tap into all my senses to just really ground me back into my body. So this, this is a very beautiful gift that a parent can teach a child, because your unresolved trauma becomes your child's anxiety, right? So it's like
That's true.
really learning and understanding, how do I regulate myself so that I can teach my child how to regulate themselves as well, right? So yeah, that's
Yeah.
a very short answer, but I hope that gives you it kind of like encapsulates the reason behind the impatience as well, and how it extends for me, and yeah, just the beauty of feeling safe, feeling what you're feeling.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, thank you so much for sharing that, because when you were sharing that right now, I was just reflecting back and thinking about, the things that our parents, as what they went through, basically affected the way they related with us, and it's affecting the way we are relating with life right now also. Like, the impatience of our parents, or the maybe the anger they had, or troubles that they experienced that they didn't know how to handle, and they express it around their children, around or to their children, and that's the
Yeah.
way the children inherit that, carry that, and carry on with life with that also. Yeah. That's so. Yeah, it's so. I mean, I hope I don't do that to my children. I hope I don't get myself, caught unaware, and express anger, express any kind of evil, not evil, but any kind of toxic behavior, or any bad behavior around them, and that way they get that, they capture that, and that way it affects their life in a negative way.
Yeah,
That'd be horrible.
toxic behavior is the strong word right there, and it's wounded behavior. Most people are not, that toxicity comes from a place of pain. It's not because people are inherently bad. We behave the way that we do for a reason. And one thing that I learned, and you touch on such an important topic, is that when a child reacts and you think, you read all these books, you're so prepared how you're going to behave and how you're going to act. I mean, I did it, I get it. And then, you're tired, you're sleep deprived, and then that child comes with a tantrum and all hell breaks loose. There's this knee-jerk reaction where people revert back to their default. And their default is how they were treated as a child. It doesn't matter how prepared we think we're going to go into it. And that is when the real self control, that's when the real test comes in, not the child, how
Yeah.
you are going to react when you find yourself at your default. That is that's really
That's it.
mastering yourself and life in
Yeah.
itself. So, and I mean, that was, I'm laughing because that was my experience, and it was tough. It was tough. I mean, I still have moments with them. They're in their terrible twos, and it's a lot. Yeah.
It's a lot, yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I love to speak with you, because I was going through your story, and I was like, wow, what you've experienced in life is so. I mean, relationship with your father, for example, being in crossroads with suicide at a young age, having this broken heart syndrome, but still you're on this part of healing, and your healing work has impacted so many lives. So I would just like you to, dive into that a little
Of
bit. What
course.
pivotal moments in your personal journey led you to this path of trauma recovery, and yeah, all you do?
So I'm gonna list them in bullet points, because if I really had to, I mean, I have an autobiography if anyone would like to learn more about it. So I'm gonna bullet point it for you to kind of give you the idea of how it all came to where I am today. Is that a plan?
Mm.
Okay, good.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
good. Yes.
So I grew up with a father who was actually clinically diagnosed as a sociopath. And when I was about 13, I found, back in the days, we had these cassette tapes, that you put in
Mm.
the tape, and you put it in and you play the song, and you take it out and flip
Yes.
it around and put it back in. Okay. So
Yeah.
he had a psychiatrist. And so I just grabbed the tape. I saw my dad's name was on the tape, and I just, oh, well, whatever. I thought it was maybe his music. So I just put it in and I hit play. And then I heard him and I heard he's psychiatrist. And I thought, oh, this is really interesting. And 5 minutes into the
Mm.
conversation, I heard the diagnosis. And I thought,
Ooh.
what is this? Because when you grow up with a hostile, abusive environment, that's your reference. There's nothing else to reference
Mm.
it to, right? So it's that
Mhm.
abuse is your normal. So I went to the library and I looked up in the books of the I showed the librarian what this name was. And so she showed me the book so that I can read what does this diagnosis mean. And I felt like my world fell apart, but it also made a lot of sense. And with that
Mm.
sense of understanding that I could only have at a 13-year-old, at least it gave me an understanding that in my head that he was broken, and that's just it. To have a
Mm.
conversation with someone who cannot digest emotions the way that you do, like an average person. They live fully for themselves, going from 0 to 1,000 in a split second for absolutely no reason. And to deal with that level of anger as well. And he was quite a volatile person, very violent, and alcoholic on top of that. And he self-medicated with his medication as well, went to multiple doctors. He would use, mix the medication along with his alcohol as well. So it was a
Mm.
very, very tough upbringing, very tough. And this was one area that set me up for moving into the direction where I am today. And the
Mm.
second biggest point was, in that same year, I saw a BMW. Toby, I fell in love with that car. I thought, oh my God, it's so beautiful. And the woman driving is so elegant and just, and I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. And and so my dad was sitting in the living room, and there were always these beer cans. Castle Lager was his favorite drink, just all these beer cans, and he was smoking. And I walked in and I said, Dad, I saw a BMW and I'm going to buy a BMW one day. And he was drunk and he just looked at me with this absolute blank stare. And he said, you will wipe vomit off the floor in the pubs that I drink, you stupid goddamn child. And then
Oh.
and they flicked his ash on the carpet and he kept watching rugby. And Toby, something in me just went from this having this sense of innocence. There was a significant moment I felt the switch to rage, to absolute rage. I've heard him say a lot of things to me, and I think that was just that straw that broke the camel's back. For me, that
Mhm.
I hit my threshold, because at that age, I started going to my friends' houses and I started seeing how their father treat them, and the wife, and how the whole family dynamic comes together. And I'm like, you have Christmas together? Wow. Your dad comes to your birthday? No way. And I'm starting to see how all of this is not in my life. And I'm the only child. And
Mm.
that moment was in hindsight the reason why I had the stress-induced heart attack when I was 30. But I'm gonna pause right there. I'm just bringing the two together, but
Mm.
I'm gonna pause right there. And on
Mm.
Father's Day, I gave him, and this was the other point. And on Father's Day, I gave him a silver framed photo of me and my mother when my mother was holding me just after I was born. And I said, Happy Father's Day. And I had to save 2 months of pocket money to buy that photo frame for Father's Day. And a week after I gave it to him, my mom and dad had an argument in the TV room. And I just heard glass breaking. And he said, this is the reason why our marriage is failing. And I just knew it was that photo frame that I gave him.
Mm.
And
Mm.
when I went out and when he slammed the door and he left and I went out, that's exactly what was lying on the floor. I cleaned up the glass and I took the photo frame back and I just kept it in my room. This constant invalidation, this constant attack of your sense of being a human being, your identity as a woman, your identity as a daughter, and how your father perceives you directly impacts your confidence and your resilience in life.
Mm.
And I felt that is what collapsed for me. And so a lot of people, when they go into that phone collapse, that freeze, they can either become the peacekeeper, or they can become the aggressor. So I was the peacekeeper. But as I matured, I started to switch. That anger that I started to feel became my fuel. That anger became my motivation. That anger became my FU, like, I'm going to show you. And in my head, I said, I will buy a brand new BMW before I am 20. And I remember the days I would lie in my bed, just lying there, just visioning, having this amazing job, having this car, having this fully independent life. And long story short, my life fell apart when I was 15. There was my drink was spiked at a friend's house, and I was raped as well. And so they took turns beating me up. My face was busted up, and they dropped me half naked in front of a club. And thank God, one of my really good friends was there that night and just happened to, just as they dropped me, he woke up. And he was in shock to see me like this. And the security guards came running, and so he found out where this all happened. Long story. I'm telling you, this is a lot of points, Toby. This is not just a simple answer. But and so I ended up being on the front page of the newspaper. It was a court case. The headlines was, young girl covered in blood, and it was a really nasty situation. It happened Friday. Monday morning, my mom immediately took me out of the school because of death threats that I was receiving, saying that I was hitting myself and it's my fault that my face looked like that. But thank God there was one child that came forward who witnessed everything and came forward and testified. And so, long story short, I had to study at home. I couldn't leave the house. My social anxiety went through the roof. I lived in so much fear. And that's when my father lost his job. So my mom was carrying everyone. And my mom's like, Evette, I can't afford this private school anymore. And I'm like, we got this. And I went and I got 2 jobs. So I started to pay for my high school to just get through high school privately. And thank God my marks were high enough. And so I could skip grade 11. And so did grade 12 and then went straight into college, just did a business management diploma. And then I ended up in De Beers, which was the same company that my father worked for. And Toby, you're going to love this. Wait. And so, and I worked so goddamn hard because that anger was fueling me. I'm going to show you. I'm going to do this. I'm going to break through this. And I kept just telling myself, Evette, just get through this, because God, when you're out of that house, your life is yours. It is yours. And this was the trophy. This was the carrot at the end of the stick. That the client who came to De Beers one day just looked at me and he said, I want to have a meeting with you. I was 17. I was turning 18 that year, and I already graduated before all the kids that turned on me. right, with that court case. They're still in school. I'm working. I'm earning big bucks. I'm doing great. I'm studying college, paying for everything by myself. And he said, I like your work ethics. How about I quadruple your salary? I give you a car. I give you an apartment. Come to Johannesburg. I want you on my private jet in 2 weeks. Are you ready for that? Toby, I'm the kind of person I say yes and then I figure it out, right? And I just said yes. I said yes. You know where I was 2 weeks later? On that private jet, flown to Johannesburg. And I gave it my all. I worked so hard, so hard. 6 months later, I bought a brand new BMW 318 Ti silver custom designed. I designed that car before it was even made. Exactly the color, the seats, everything the way that I wanted. I did it. I had two apartments. One was in Vereniging where I worked, and one was in Johannesburg. And I would drive back and forth between the two because my base was in Johannesburg. I was living my best life. I walked into shops, I buy what I want, I don't look at the price tag. I was thriving. I was thriving. But I was a very angry person. I was a volatile, angry person because I needed my anger to get me through. That was my fuel, it was my gasoline. And I found myself in hospital for 2 days for burnout. That's where it started. So I was 20 in hospital for burnout for 2 days out. And then my resume was found by Australia along with my partner at the time, and they said, "God, we love your work ethic, your work ethics, your history, you have everything that we need. Come to Australia." And I said, "You know me, yes." I said yes.
Yes.
3 months later, sold everything, sold my car. I had a complete meltdown at the car dealership when I gave the key over because that car was my status. It was my success symbol. That car was to show you can do it regardless, even by yourself. You got this. That was my my token of you got this, event. And I had to let
It was
that
like,
go. And
Daddy, I got this car.
I crumbled. Oh, Toby, I crumbled. And so went to Australia, and within 6 months I had a really powerful position where I was doing incredibly well. And then I just woke up one day and I'm like, I hate my life. I hate my life. I'm now 22 at that point, and I'm drinking to cope with my anxiety, my depression, my stress, and to control my anger. I was smoking like my father, almost 30 cigarettes a day. It was a terrible lifestyle. Get up 4 o'clock in the morning to exercise just to get rid of that cortisol because of the built up anxiety and stress that just needed to come out before I would face my colleagues and everything else. And I was with a very volatile partner at the time, which was literally my father, because that's your reference for love, that's your reference for what a man should be like. So that's what regulated my nervous system, even though my head told me this is toxic. And I just woke up one day and I said, you know what, this is it. I love what I have, but it's not worth living for. And I called my manager 5 o'clock that morning at the office, and I left a voice message with all my passwords, everything, just handed over literally everything that I was working on, because that morning I decided I'm never going to go back and I'm going to end my life. Because for me, the way that I was living, it's not living. You're surviving. And I just couldn't see what my life would look like in a year's time. I'm like, God, it's going to look the same. And I'll probably have health problems. And it's just going to get worse. And it's just going to get worse. So, my mind is just going into that ants, that automatic negative thoughts, and it's constantly just spiraling. And so, and I'm an atheist at this point because I was raised Christian by my father, who used God with this whole fear-based, God is going to punish you if you don't do this. God is jealous, God is this. And so my relationship with God was just so incredibly unhealthy that I flipped to the opposite. And so I sat there in front of Google. I had 2 shots of vodka at this point. I waited for my partner to go to the office. I said, listen, I'm sick. I'm not going to go. And I'm sitting there with a cigarette. So back in the days, we had these clunky Dell computers, these big computers with the clunky keyboards.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I'm
Yes.
sitting there and I'm typing, and just as I was about to type in, how can I just end this as painlessly as possible? And something
Mm.
just came. And I'm a very competitive person by nature because of my father, right? That anger, that, I can do this. I'm going to show you, blah, blah, blah. Wherever I had a
Yeah.
problem, I'm like, I could push through this. So I'm very solution orientated, but I never
Mm.
applied that strategy to my own life.
Mm.
And
Mm.
something just came. I had goosebumps. I had this wave of goosebumps over me. And then suddenly something just said, you're asking the wrong question. It's not like a voice, but it's like this internal message. It's like your
Mm.
consciousness speaking to you. It's the best way that I can explain it. And
Mm.
I'm like, what? And then that feeling came of, but Yvette, there's people around you that's happy, that's really, really happy. Why is it that they're happy and you're not? So now I'm like, now you're speaking my language. Now the
Mm.
competitor in me is now like, wait, what? Oh, that's
Mm.
interesting. Because when you're in a place of pain, all that you see is that pain. You don't see
Mm.
anything outside of that. It's almost like your ability to think in a rational manner is just it's out the door, right? It's tunnel vision.
Yeah.
And when you're in that state of
Mm.
survival. And so I sat there and I'm thinking, I'm going to type in how to be happy. And
Mm.
you wouldn't believe back then what Google threw at me. Doreen Virtue,
What was it?
crystals, Neil Donald Walsh, conversations with God. And I'm like, get out. Bullshit. I'm like, you're gonna give me this nonsense? What is this? This is a joke. I felt almost offended. I'm like, I'm sitting there talking
Mm.
to God and I'm thinking, like, is this your sarcasm to me now? You know? But Toby, let me tell you, I don't know if you can relate and anyone else out there, but God, when you've been through so much, when you've tried everything, and you feel that you really have reached that point where you feel like you are on your knees and you are so in such a state of feeling so
Mm.
unresourceful that not even you know what the next goddamn step's going to be.
Mm.
It was the most humbling experience that I ever could have had because my ego wouldn't allow me to see a different way of life. And I sat there and I'm thinking, and this probably an hour went by. Or not specifically an hour, but it felt like there was a long pause because I was digesting
Mm.
this. And I'm like, where am I gonna go with this? How am I gonna do this? What is my
Mm.
next step gonna look like? What is even, you wanna tell me rocks are gonna make me feel happy? Like, what? And I thought the first thing that I could digest was Neil Donald Walsh, Conversations with God. And
Mm.
that was my entry point back to God. Because I sat there and I thought, listen, Yvette, you don't have the answer because if you did, you wouldn't be sitting here. So who are you to judge and question what you see right now? You asked for an answer. You looked for an alternative. You were open to it. So here it is. Take the step and let's see what happens. And I thought, perfect. Toby, I love this world that I uncovered. I did get into
Mm.
crystals. I did get into color therapy and healing and hypnosis and all this stuff. And I felt like this child in Alice in Wonderland. I loved it. I absolutely surprised myself by how much it just came to me at a second nature. And I skipped one very important point. I actually wanted to become a crime scene investigator and a defense lawyer. And I studied it for 6 months. And
Mm.
so when I was in South Africa, this was before I went to Australia, I completely gave it up. And I realized that as I got onto that journey, that me wanting to become a crime scene investigator, that was my inner child needing to clean up this my life that looked like a goddamn crime. All the
Mm.
injustices, all the things that was done wrong to me, all the lies, the betrayal, the deceit, the just everything that felt so wrong. I needed to understand, why did you do what you did? And why did you go? Why this? Why that? Where is my apology? All of that, right? And the lawyer is, I want my justice.
Yeah.
I want my justice because I didn't get it. Long story short, the court case was thrown out. I didn't get my justice. And the court case got thrown out because the people who were on the other side of it, they lied in their testimonies, and then things got scrambled. And I still think to this day there's a possibility that money got involved. And so, and we were financially on our knees at that point. So coming back to this personal development world that I stepped into, so be 3 months later, I quit my corporate job and I made personal development my life, because it changed my life so much in such a short span of time that I'm like, this is not possible. How? Because I'm very disciplined. If you give me something and say, Yvette, this is going to do this for you, and this is how it's going to make you feel, I'm going to go do it. I will follow it like a religion, and I will be 100% disciplined, and I'll make it work. Not in an unhealthy way, but just because I'm so focused, I'm very determined. And I applied that now to myself, not to, to create success, but I used that same strength that I had and I gave it back to me. I gave it
Oh
back to
yeah.
me. And that is when I really stepped into my power and found a business partner. I said, hey, I've been studying this and I've been trying this on me. This works really well. What do you think about it? And it's like, oh yeah, this is great. So made a few YouTube videos, just started rolling out the people and just friends and family. And, they started bringing in more people and it just started teaching classes locally, made a few videos, just put it out on YouTube just for fun, just to share. And 9 months later, I think it was probably a matter of weeks, and we were booked out overseas for 9 months to go and teach overseas.
Wow.
So it went nuts. It's just, it went from 0 to 1,000 so fast. But here's the challenge. I loved the process. It was beautiful. That's where I started writing my book, Metaphysical Anatomy. The book, it's now 7,000 people that I worked with and interviewed, with 722 medical elements and the emotions that impact them, working in 43 countries, just bringing all these pieces together. And the challenge came that I started to transform that anger into eustress. Eustress is positive stress, but it was disguised, right? It was still the anger, but it was disguised as positive stress. Let's go, go, go. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Come everyone, let's go. Let's get on the plane. We need to go. Okay, now it's the next class. How's everyone doing? This, it wore me down. It wore me down because the problem now became that I couldn't let go fully of my last bits and pieces of pain with my father, because I needed that underlying anger to maintain the success that I created. The lifestyle that I created, the foundation was anger. So I sabotaged. I sabotaged the healing process of dealing with that anger, not consciously. Now I realize what I did back then. At the time, I had no idea. I was clueless. I was thinking I'm doing everything right. But that thing, that same thing that keeps coming back, no matter how hard you work on it, that one.
Yeah.
That one. That was mine. That was mine. And the final straw came when I was 29 and I had to put down my beloved dog, Gabe. Now, the thing is, his death was the tipping point. Keep in mind, the significant relationship at the time was already falling apart. I was living in a house that was almost $1 million and financially doing extremely well, 5 acres, living, my neighbor was a billionaire, doing really well and loving the life that I have created. And at least I thought that's what I love. At least I thought that's how I really felt about it. And the day came where I had to let go of this dog. And my goodness, the dog, I only had it for 6 months, Toby, 6 months. And the German Shepherd, he was born with very severe genetic predispositions, just a really bad breed. I was living on an island at the time, so things were not properly controlled there with breeding. And I remember when we were at the vet, and you just holding him there, because this dog opened up my heart. This dog showed me what safe love felt like. My heart opened because of that dog. And I could feel the heat, the warmth, the beauty, the flow, this sense of just, I can breathe in my chest when that dog was around. I could feel that love. There was just this unexplainable connection that to this day I can't explain it. I felt like there was a human in that dog. It's a very beautiful dynamic, very special. And I've never in my life experienced anything like that ever again. And I remember when I was there at the vet, and it was that final moment, and the dog exhaled that last breath, and just that sheer shock and pain and the distress of it. And the reason why I only came out recently talking about my broken heart syndrome at that age is because I couldn't get to the point of this conversation right now that I am with you and not have a complete breakdown. I mean, it's sitting here right now, but I can compose myself. And it took me a really long time to to feel ready to talk about it. And I remember I cried so hard that the vet started to cry with me. Like, she was sobbing with me. That's how hard I cried. And I remember I walked out, and I started to feel this pain in my neck and then in my arm. And then my arm just started to feel a bit a bit tingly, like you lied in your arm for too long. And then I ignored it, and I thought, no, I'm not going to worry about it. And then I got into the car, and the next thing that I knew, I just felt like there was like this washing machine, like this swirl, or like fish like swimming in my chest. I'm like, this is not good. Then the shortness of breath started. I started breaking out in sweat. My left face, it dropped. Like, it felt, or at least it felt like it dropped. Like, I didn't have a lot of control on this side. And that's where my left arm really went. And I just collapsed forward because I felt I didn't have enough power in me. And I mumbled at this point. I couldn't speak properly. I mumbled to my driver, and I said, hospital. And it took him a couple of times to hear what I was trying to say. And I said, hospital. And then after the hospital, we go. And then I'm sitting here in the hospital bed, long story short, as I was being discharged. And this was a third world country, and the doctor came in, and not very, how can I say, not very patient. There's not a lot of compassion for patients. He's like a straight arrow. He says it as it is, and boom, that's it. And he came into my room, and he threw this white box on my bed, and he said, take that. And then he walked out, and he turned around and he said, oh, by the way, you had broken heart syndrome. And I said, what does that mean? He said, what does that mean? You don't have a goddamn heart problem. You have a goddamn stress problem. And they walked out. Wow. And that was it. Oh, and I'm thankful that I had my mom there with me, because she was living with me at the time, and she helped me to get back on my feet. Because let me tell you, that breathlessness, that exhaustion, that it took me a while to recover from that. But there's one thing that happened in that moment. And what happened was, I negotiated for my life. And let me tell you, when you are in a situation where you negotiate for your life, that house that I would leave behind, it means nothing. The money in my bank account is going to be spent by people, not by me. My clothing is going to be worn by others and enjoyed, not by me. And I remember, and I mean, this happens in such a short span of time. And I asked myself, what am I actually taking with me? And I couldn't answer that question. I couldn't answer it.
Yeah, because you take nothing. Yeah.
And I thought, what a waste. Everything has been about other people. Everything has been about assets. Everything has been about being the best, competing, and it's this and it's this and it's that. And that, to me, was the biggest sense of failure that I have ever felt in my life. I was highly successful on paper, but here I felt like a failure. And that's when my life turned around big time. Big time. I really had to start to go back and look at, why did I have this heart attack? What was the anger about? Oh, it was this, it was this. So I started to put the pieces back together slowly but surely, with proper correct support, and turned my life around. And now I started to learn how to build my success on just pure passion, but needing to learn to also to control that passion, because that dopamine, that ticking the box followed by action, this is what the brain loves. I had to learn to control that now, because now I had the habit of just, you give me something and I'm excited and I go, I have this addictive personality. But the beauty of that now is with this self-awareness. And I notice that when I achieve success, when I achieve my goals, it's more like a graceful flowing process rather than this panic, anxious feeling of like, it's got to happen now, it needs to happen now. That impatience, it becomes a learned behavior. And it's a constant conscious needing to just break that and saying, you know what, your foundation is different now. We don't need that anymore. Need it for what now? Where's the panic? For what is that for? So I'd constantly challenge myself, for what purpose? For what purpose? And that question, that was that was the golden nugget for me. The panic for what purpose? Oh, well, I can't really answer that. Okay, well, why are we doing it, Yvette? So every time when I'm doing something and I can feel it's harming me or it's unhealthy, I ask myself, for what purpose? And Toby, long story, bullet points. This is how I am where I am today. And yeah, it's been quite a journey. But would I say that I would do all over again? Absolutely not. So I know.
Oh,
A lot of people say it with a brave face, oh, I'll do it again. It was so worth it. I'm like, yeah, no. No.
no,
I think we
it's,
can learn in a more graceful way now. No, 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 no.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's exactly why I'm speaking with you, Yvette,
Yeah.
because from your experiences and what you been opportuned to go through,
Yeah.
it tells other people out there not to go through the same thing. Like there's a lady out there right now that is being driven by hunger and wants to push and push and push, and hearing your story right now will help her to know that at the end of it is basically emptiness, basically being dropped off and feeling unhealthy at the end. Yeah. So I really appreciate what you shared right now. I mean, I was
Yeah.
just listening and reflecting, and I was just thinking to myself that one has to really question the force that drives one in life.
Yeah.
Like, are you being driven by anger? Are you being driven by, passion for what you are doing? Or is it because you're trying to say, I'll show you that I can do this?
Yeah.
Trying to prove yourself to somebody. And at the end of the day, if you're trying to prove yourself to someone or you're moving by anger, it ends up in destruction, I
Yeah.
would say, in self-destruction.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, there's always a subconscious motivating factor behind everything that we do. And research even shows that normally the reason why we do something is because there's something in it for us, but it's very rare that we would do it, um for example, how can I say, with that we would do something just for ourselves. Normally, it involves trying to overcorrect a certain past event, or trying to prove someone wrong, or a fear of trying to not prove someone right about something that they said about you, or not wanting to fail, not wanting to shame your parents. Maybe your parents struggled and now you want to do better. You want to show them, I got this. I will never, let you down. So just these little things that can come from a good intention, but the core foundation of it is wounded, right? So good intention, wounded
Yeah.
foundation,
It doesn't work.
not going to have a good outcome for you. No, because
No.
you built whatever positive perceived outcome on a faulty foundation, and it's going to collapse at some point.
Yeah, that's true. Wow, Yvette, I really, when you were sharing your story, I was feeling emotional, honestly. I almost started
Oh,
crying, but I was
bless.
like, no, I had myself
Oh,
together.
bless.
Man, I mean, experiencing rape, and the painful one for me was basically, the way your father treated you, to, telling you that you will scrub the floors instead of,
Yeah.
accepting and, embracing your dreams. That was very, very
And
painful for me to
that's
hear.
it's your own father. Your own blood,
Yeah.
your own father saying that to you. And what struck me, and what I didn't add here, is it just showed me how numb I was at that time, because when I
Hmm.
lived in Australia, and the partner that I had at that time in head office before I quit my job to start personal development, the person that I was with at that time that I said was the mirror of my father, we were at a work function. And one of my colleagues saw my partner at the time having a conversation with me. And that Monday, she came to me with this very serious look on her face. And she said, Evette, can I just talk to you for 5 minutes? And I said, of course you can. I was very accommodating. I sat down, but I could see her face remain serious. And I thinking, oh, I'm in trouble. Because I couldn't think for what other reason this would be. And she looked me straight in the face and she said, Evette, I saw how you and your partner interacted with one another, or more so actually how he interacted with you. And I'm sorry, and I know this is probably not my place, but I'm saying this from a sincere place of concern. Do you understand that you might be in an abusive relationship?
Hmm.
Toby, you could have knocked me over from my chair and I would not have felt the floor, myself hitting that floor. I was speechless. Speechless. I couldn't digest what she said. And I asked her, can you give me examples? And she's like, this and this and that. And I'm thinking, but yeah, and that's when I realized that that was the problem. That was the problem right there. It was normal. And that's when I started, and it was just shortly after that when I had that suicide attempt, when I wanted to end it, because everything just there for me unraveled and unraveled, and I started to see things more and more, and I started to look at things like that. Was just the absolute catalyst for me, that one question that just opened up this absolute mess that turned into something incredibly beautiful. And it just shows you the danger of living our lives a certain way, and how that can become a lifestyle, how that can become your new normal. It is, say, like depression. Say, for example, someone's going through a depressing period. If we don't snap out of that, or take actions, or get the right medication, or the support that we need, that becomes not just a condition, but it becomes a lifestyle. You condition yourself with other things around, like coping mechanisms and strategies to cope with it. So it's not just the experience that you're having, but it's how you deal with it. And how you deal with it becomes another set of avenues and ways of thinking and feeling, and building a life for yourself. So you start to build a life to the point where people almost cannot see themselves without the condition. They start to identify with it. I identified myself with being a victim. But the biggest pain point and stress that and shocking revelation that I had at that moment was that you can't heal when you feel like a victim. You're not going to see solutions when you feel like a victim. You can't be empowered and step into your power when you feel powerless. And that's why I was spinning my wheels. Same issues came back, and I'm like, God, I worked on this. Why is it coming back? My identity and how I identified with these experiences, that is what held me back. And secondly, if you don't feel safe to make a change, you can make that change as many times as you want. You can spend as much money as you want. I can guarantee you right now, it will not happen. Your nervous system will not regulate if it doesn't feel safe. And you know how many people feel unsafe to feel safe? It's a
A lot
it's
of
a
people.
double-edged sword. right? So
Yeah.
it's an art. Healing is an art. And healing only becomes painful if we do the gun scatter approach. We throw things on the wall, let's see what sticks, and we're going to go with it, right? Most people don't understand their problems or their trauma or their challenges well enough in order to apply the correct solution. They are applying solutions. There's people working so hard in their lives trying to correct it with sincere effort, but they feel like they're failing. They feel like they're not getting to where they want to be. And most of the time, it's because there's not a proper understanding of why they are feeling the way that they do, or the issues that they're experiencing. Because awareness of a problem, like proper awareness, is a problem half solved. The other half is now applying the correct solution. And you need to make sure that
Yes.
whatever solution it is that you apply, that you feel safe with that solution. If you, for example, were abused by, let's say, a woman, and now you go to a therapist that's a woman, well, that's not a good idea. Then
No, you'll be triggered.
just
Yeah.
basic steps, right? Just basic steps. So go find a male therapist that can help you. Let's start with that. Just basic steps that we can take to start to look at, okay, what steps can I take to start to that will help me to feel safe when I want to address XYZ, right? So, and make sure, and I try to heal myself, because sometimes of negative feedback that I got from a partner, oh, you this, you this, you that, and the issues that was seen in me was not a priority to me. I'm like, well, I have other things going on. So when I was working on certain issues, it's like my heart wasn't really in it because it was not a priority to me. We have to heal for ourselves at our own accord and according to what is important to us. It's valid, for example, to say, I need to heal because of my behavior is hurting my child. Okay, well, if that's important to you, then that is what needs to be done. And it should be something that's important to you as well, right? So that is one exception that I would say, okay, well, that would kind of be, one where it would be a good idea to feel that I need to change myself to support that little human being that we are responsible for, right? So um
Yeah. Yeah.
but generally speaking, healing must come from you. When clients
You.
come to me, the moment I catch that they are there because they were told to be there, I cancel the session and I refund, and I say, you come back when you want to be there. Do you know how many people have come back to me? No one.
How many?
No one.
Oh.
Because they didn't really want to change. They were there because their wives threatened them. They were there because, they were threatened in one way or another that you have to change that or this is going to be taken away. Do you think that person's going to heal, Toby? Do you think their
No.
heart's in it? No.
No.
I work with people. For me, healing's not about money. I work with people when I know that their heart is in it, because then I'm right there with you and I'm going to give you my all. And I do. I'm not the therapist that sits there with pink and fluff. It's like, we're gonna do the work. We're gonna get there, and we're gonna get there with love and support. But if there's things where people dig their heels in, I'm gonna like, no, no, no. I see you, and I mean it in a good way. I mean it in a good way. Let's explore
Yeah.
what's going on. I don't let people get away with stuff, but it's how we heal. It's so personal. It's such an intimate process. And it's something that needs to and has to be done when you feel good in your heart about it. Yes, there's going to be fear because we're about to do something new. We are negative biased. We're biologically designed you know, to mistrust everything. And let me tell you, the nervous system, it hates uncertainty. It hates it. So that's why we feel
That's
the
true.
fight and flight coming up, because we're stepping into a place of uncertainty. What is that going to look like? What is that going to feel like? Blah, blah, blah. And that's why with my work, I made it my absolute life mission to design something where people don't have to talk about the trauma. They don't have to relive it, and they don't have to remember memories that cause them to feel the way that they do. All of these points are not necessary, because sometimes these points, people go and dig into it, and it can actually cause more problems.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's
That's true.
there's there's beautiful ways of going through processes, because, and the reason why I made that such a important factor for me is because I was taken through a process that caused me to relive things that I did not want to relive. And I didn't know that the therapy was going to cause me to relive it. And you know what happened? My past was the same as my therapist. And my reaction was so severe that it triggered her to the point where she couldn't get me out of it.
Oh wow.
And that,
That's dangerous.
and that is when I said, no, 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 this is not how therapy should be. And this is one of many reasons why people are scared of healing. It's because of how it makes them feel. You don't have to be ripped apart or feel like you're going through pain or trauma in order to heal. You can comfortably stay in your window of tolerance and shift by miles. It's just, there's different values and beliefs, and some people, for me, it's drama. I mean, if there's people who love drama, I mean, knock yourself out, but it's not for me. It's no. I mean, I'm 41 this year, and I'm just like, I'm at a place in my life where I'm just like, not, that's just not for me anymore. Life now needs to be simple and comfortable. We've done the drama, we've done the theatrical, shows and all of that, and it's just,
Yeah.
let's come back to basics. Let's come back to simplicity. I'm a very simplistic, basic person. If you had to meet me in real life and see how I eat my dinner and stuff like that, it's just like, it'd be like, like, it's just like,
So simple.
just enjoy life. Just, be present. Enjoy the food. It's not about making dinner about the event of all 5 spoons and this and that. Or, serviettes is sometimes still in the plastic, bag, and it just gets pulled out. It doesn't need this fancy box or whatnot. Who cares? It's just dinner. It's over in a few minutes. It's like, it's just,
Yeah.
come invest your energy in things that actually really matter. And of course, if that matters to you, then that's energy well spent. But for me, it doesn't matter. So if I had to go do that, that's for me not energy going to be well spent. Do you know what I
That's
mean?
true.
Put your
Yes, yes, I do.
energy where things matter for you. If it doesn't matter to you, stop it. Like, for what purpose? And now people might say, now it boils over into other people. Well, oh my God. Well, where are we going to
Trying to
end?
please other people.
Where are we going to end with that? Okay, so if you start to feel drained, then you're overstepping your own boundaries. So we need to pull back, pull back. So there's these basic warning signals that we can look at to just come back to you, come back to you, because you can be here and still have your best relationships, your best friendships, and you'll be your best self at the office. Being your best self and showing up strongly for others doesn't mean giving of yourself to others. It's
True.
about how
Yeah.
you show
Yeah.
up and how that makes the
Yeah.
person feel. Not about taking responsibility for them or carrying their pain or this or that. They have no idea that you're doing it. You are suffering in silence. They have no idea. And for what purpose, Toby? Knowing that, for
Doesn't
what
worth it.
purpose? See, so
Yeah.
the question, and I'm making a point of this because for you and mostly for the listeners who's here with us right now, if there's a pain point in your life, I always bring it back to, for what purpose? And then you might have an answer, you might have a plausible answer, but keep challenging it with that question. Okay, that's now the answer, but for what purpose? And that for what purpose? And that for what purpose? And you might find yourself at a very interesting place.
I'm going to use that question in everything I'm doing. For what
Good.
purpose? Why am I doing this? Why am I doing
Right?
this?
When you're gonna start to live your best life, when you live your life intentionally. Live your life intentionally and with purpose. That is, even
Yeah.
if you feel purposeless, you're going to start to feel connected to a sense of purpose. Right? We eat because the purpose of it is because we're hungry. We're going to go to hang out with a friend and the purpose is for connection. We're going to do something at work because the purpose is to support the company, and they chose me to be in that position because they love my talent. So I'm going to go give it my best today. Look at the beauty and the power of reframing that. instead of saying, I hate my job. I'm doing this job for what purpose? Well, I was chosen in an interview to take this position. Wow, there's 10 people that saw my potential. Right now, I can't see it. Okay, so do you know what I mean? Just these little things to just get you back on track. So I do hope that
Yes.
that helps. Yeah.
It's a powerful tool, basically, to live a purposeful and intentional life. Yes, yes. Wow, Yvette, I've learned so much from you. I can't express how much I've learned. You've answered all the questions I had in my head, and you sharing your story and going into details helped me also reflect on my life. It's something I'm going to have to digest and really process and use every tool that you shared to help me become a better person myself. One thing that's sticking out to me right now is like my goal should be me. You is supposed to be the safe space for yourself. Like, what do I have to do to ensure that I am a safe space for myself? I have to clean up my heart, clean up my soul, heal from every suppressed emotions, heal from every trauma, so that I can feel comfortable with myself and come out and show myself off as the best self that I am. Yeah.
Right. But Toby, here's the other thing.
Mm,
Heal, you said heal everything. Take a deep
mm,
breath. The whole point of life is to just heal the things that causes you discomfort. Only
mm.
focus on what you feel is standing between you and the other side of peace. I still
Yeah.
have my
Ah.
shenanigans. I still have some stuff in me that's, that I'm probably not even aware of.
Mm,
Absolutely. But despite that being there, I feel really comfortable in my life.
mm,
That is what we want. Just be comfortable. Because can we heal everything? I can't see why not. It's just a matter of how much
mm.
time you want to dedicate to it. Because, for
Yeah.
some people, that can become an obsession again. And that
Mm,
obsession can take over a person's life and almost become a stressful, another traumatic experience all in itself. People can burn themselves out in
mm.
that way. So for me, I
True.
check in. That's why I check in with myself once a week. I take notes
Mm,
sometimes in my journal when I had moments where I felt a bit triggered, maybe do some breath work to breathe through it. But there are things that I would go and sit down and say, okay, the next 2 hours is Evette time. And I check in with me and I'm like, okay, so let's go back. All right. So here I had that. No, I remember that. Oh, I felt that one. Okay. Right. So now what was that all about? So I'll start unraveling it. So I check in with myself once a week. And let me tell you right now, every therapist, for me, in my personal opinion, it's mandatory to have a therapist.
mm. Yeah.
When you help so many people, secondary trauma, compassion fatigue, all of this, it's very real. And sometimes we, as therapists, can desensitize ourselves so much that we think we're okay when we're not, until that burnout, until that breakdown comes, right? So, or
Mm,
until you start to resent your clients. If you're there,
mm.
you need a break. You need a break because
Yeah.
boundaries have been overstepped, not on the client's part, but you
Mm,
have overstepped your own limitations. And the energy needs to come out, right?
mm,
Talking,
mm,
just talking through things. Maybe there's something was upsetting. Talk it through, talk it out. I personally think every person in this world should have a therapist, even if they go to that therapist once a year, just to say
mm,
all the good things that they did. Just have that someone that you can share something beautiful with or something really painful with, and know that you can just leave it there and just walk away. You can just let it out. I personally think it's very cathartic and it's extremely healthy, right? Because for
mm,
me, it's good to have friends that we can talk to. That's great. But your friends are not always going to have all the answers. And I think it's good to have a
mm,
trusted person or a therapist, just that someone that you can check in with. Like I said, whether it's weekly, once a month, once every 6 months, once a year, once every 2 years, it doesn't matter. And when you look at the
yeah.
most successful people in life, they all have someone that they can talk to that's not part of their life or their problem or um, friendship circles, completely unbiased. There's no personal opinion involved. So for me, I think that is incredibly healthy. And I also have someone that I check in with on a regular basis when I feel like I just need to just babble and babble and babble and just get, the energy out of my system. And I'm not ashamed to say that.
Yes.
I think it's healthy. For me, that's a sign of self-care, self-love, and supporting myself. I don't have an ego
True.
where I feel like I have to hold the world on my shoulders. I don't do that. I do not do that. I'm happy to share. I'm happy to humbly ask for help when I need it. Because that, for me, that's my superpower. And I love that I'm able now to do that. Because now my life, I don't get to the point where I'm suffering. The moment there's discomfort, I'm like, oh, what's that about? I don't go looking for problems. I only address issues when there's discomfort, and I check in once a week. Where did I have discomfort that I ignored? This is something I can live with. Yeah, that wasn't actually that bad. Oh, I'm actually okay. Oh, okay. We'll check in next week again. So yeah, it's just that, and that's kind of like how I maintain myself and my life. I have my daily routines. I have my gratitude. My 2-year-old can also start, she understands the concept of gratitude, like what are you thankful for. Then she would sometimes just point to her milk bottle, or it would be something or something, just something really silly, but she understands the concept. And so practicing gratitude is very important for us. We do it morning and nighttime and dinner, and it brings you back to, well, what in my life is going right? Because when we become so negative biased, all that we focus on what is going wrong, and that becomes our new reality. You filter out
That's
everything that
true.
is going right. So every day, list 5 things that you're doing right. Even if it's a repeat every day of the same thing, list 5 things that you are doing right. And then 5 things in your life that is going right. Start breaking that negative thinking cycle and habit. There are things that's going right in your life. So these simple things, these simple ways of living, and just conscious living and living intentionally, living with purpose, challenge your negative thoughts. Just simple 5 things. What in my life is going right? If you're having relationship problems, okay, well, what is my partner doing right? List 5 things that my partner is doing right, instead of sitting on top of the things of what is always going wrong. That's why a lot of relationships break down, because they cannot get away from focusing on what the person's doing wrong.
Mm,
So,
true.
yeah,
Wow.
so these are just simple little things that I'm sharing with everyone right now that I personally do in my life. And I hope that that there's something that speaks to you and to anyone else listening. And I hope, with all good intentions, that maybe it can help you as well in one way or another, and modify it, add to it, take away from it, whatever works for you. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of things you shared are going to work for me and going to help me. Like, even the fact of, heal what is standing between you and your peace.
That's
That's
it.
very powerful.
That's
And
it.
I'm going to hold on to that.
Beautiful. Right there. And that is going to be your goal to work on. Forget about all the other things that you think are issues. Listen, if it's not standing between you and your peace, leave it alone. Unless you are so bored one day, address it. But if you're really that bored, go for it. Nothing is stopping you. But don't feel that living a peaceful life is so far away, because it's not. It's really not.
It's not, yeah. I love that. Wow, I mean, Evette, I'm sure a lot of people would like to work with you, in your coaching program. Also get your book,
Oh,
Metaphysical
yes.
Anatomy also. Yeah. So what's the best way to connect with you? What's the best way to work with you?
That's a great question. So you can find me on Instagram, Evette Rose Official. You can find me on YouTube, evettevideos.com. And you can also find me at my website, metaphysicalanatomy.com. So you can find everything that you need there.
Awesome. I'm going to place the link to your website in the show notes of this episode. I encourage everyone to reach out to you. Get the book,
Oh,
because
bless.
your book,
Thank you.
Metaphysical Anatomy, explores the suppressed emotions and how it connects to our ailment also. So I encourage people to get that already and find out how they could free themselves from every ailment that they could be experiencing.
And the book is also in German, so yeah.
Awesome. That's good. So for German listeners also, they could get to read it in German too. That's awesome. Wow. Yvette, it has been a blessing speaking with you. I've learned so much from this conversation. I feel so privileged to just sit back and listen to your story and your powerful tools that you use to heal yourself and how you're working on your healing journey and helping other people out there do the same thing. It's a privilege and a blessing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Toby, and thank you for everyone else as well. Thank you so much.
Wow, you made it to the very end of this episode. Thank you so much for listening. I'm grateful for your time, your love, and your contributions. Subscribe, like, review, and share this podcast. God bless you. Bye. Bye.